Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you back to the CCW Safe podcast. I am Rob High, back here at home base in Oklahoma City, joined by my co-host, Phillip Naiman. Phil, you look
Hello,
like
everybody. Happy New Year.
buried in the People's Republic again. Is that right?
Yes, I'm still behind enemy lines in the People's Republic of occupied California, but I'm fighting the good fight here.
And we are blessed today to have Chet Palumbo join us. And Chet, I'm going to let you give your own little introduction here. Chet's an attorney. He's a He's a self-defense practitioner, so we want to kind of squeeze him for a little bit of knowledge today. See what we can't make it today. So good to have you, brother.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name's Chet. I've been an attorney since 2010, practiced pretty much exclusively criminal law. I've done both defense and prosecution. I was a prosecutor for about 2 years in Tampa. I have right about 45 jury trials that I've done as first chair. So I've really been blessed to be able to actually get into court and do a lot of jury trials. And around 2011 is when I started doing combatives in martial arts. So I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since then. I'm currently a purple belt. I've started doing a lot of shooting classes around 2012, 2013. Got my NRA basic pistol instructor certification in 2013. Kind of went on training at different shooting schools. Got into combatives, I guess you could say in 2017. So started doing a lot of weapons-based grappling, force on force, on that sort of thing. And I'm currently a combatives green belt under Matt Larson. So, and yeah, so just super happy to be here today. Thank you.
You said combatives green belt. What is the? I mean, obviously, jiu-jitsu has its own regulations. What is the combatives system?
Yeah,
for ranking?
That's a great question. And I don't know if you're familiar with who Matt Larson is. He was considered the father of modern combatives. Came up with the 75th Ranger Regiment, instituted the Army Combatives program, and this is actually a very recent thing where him, along with John Valentine, Tim Kennedy, they sort of decided to create a central standardization for combatives, and he created a combatives university. And this actually only launched, maybe 6 or 7 months ago or so. And what it is it's not its own martial art. It's not its own system of techniques. It's an accreditation system, if you will, where for different belt levels, you have to demonstrate proficiency in things like fighting, pistol marksmanship, rifle marksmanship, strength and conditioning, and trauma first aid. And so each belt rank, there's a progressive higher level of proficiency that you're expected to meet. So for example, the first belt's gray, and then green belt is where I'm at. That's the second from the bottom. The requirements for that is I had to demonstrate 3 competition wins as a jiu-jitsu purple belt. I guess, at about 150 or 200 hours of tactical pistol training that I documented for the pistol proficiency, and then just a basic proficiency in rifle, and then the 8-hour Red Cross first aid certification, along with some other strength standards. And then those standards just go up progressively with each belt.
Very interesting. The combatives thing is kind of. I'm actually next week going to be in the Vegas area with Tim Kennedy's group for
Nice.
the Sheepdog response, and then because I don't feel like I'll have enough bruises after that, I'm going with Raul Martinez at the end of this month in Escondido. So I'm going to get it all done this month, and then if I can walk in February, I'll report how it worked.
Nice. Well, yeah, Tim Kennedy's a black belt in the system under Matt Larson, so he'd be able to tell you a lot better than I could about all the details of it.
Cool. How does their progression? You said gray to green, and then blue, purple, brown, black.
So for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. The combatives belt system goes gray, green, brown, black.
Okay. Very cool. Is is that an in-person testing? Is that something you're able to do for them online and then show your other accomplishment, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's he's got it all set up online where, for example, for the fighting or hand-to-hand aspect of it, I just had to upload videos of my competition. So luckily, I had a few competitions that had been videoed. As far as the strength and conditioning, same thing. You can upload a video of doing the deadlift, squat, and bench press. Uh, Documentation for the Red Cross certification is fine. But yeah, he's got it all set up online, and then he also has it set up where the current black belts are able to independently direct promote someone up through the belt of green belt. So if you're training under someone that's currently a black belt, um, they can promote you up to gray or green.
What is the rifle competency level?
The rifle for that is it's very rudimentary. I'm not really a rifle guy. I went and did um, a private lesson with an instructor just to meet that certification. But I would imagine brown and black belt it's going to get a lot higher. But for gray and green belt, he really just wants to see that you have a basic proficiency in holding the rifle, manipulating the rifle, safely shooting it, and just kind of doing reloads. But definitely the emphasis for this at the lower ranks, which is where I'm at, the emphasis is definitely on pistol proficiency.
Good. How big is this?
So right now, I want to say there's between 40 and 50 recognized black belts in the country, and somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 20 brown belts. Like I said, it's very new. It's in its infancy. But the people that are currently black belts, like Matt Larson, Tim Kennedy, Craig Douglas, Ben Aubin, Cliff Byerly, Cecil Birch, like those, those are just to name a few guys that you've probably heard of before. But and then they're sort of just promulgating it, and the idea is to grow it and set standards so that people kind of know, who the legitimate guys are.
That's very good. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
Now, I actually came to know Chet just through some of the posts I was seeing in the Facebook group for this. And then he reached out to me and had some questions regarding safe and some of the.
We've got a slow internet connection there, buddy. I think he was just trying to say how he met you. So maybe you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, sure. So I was doing a video on CCW insurance because it's something that friends and family ask me a lot. Should I get it? It's
a legal protection plan.
Okay, legal protection plan. That's right. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and I remember Rob telling me why it's not an insurance company, but yeah, the legal protection plans. Should I get them? Should I not get them? And I just kind of made a video, kind of posting some questions that a consumer should have, and then he commented, and I asked him some direct questions, and I was very, very impressed with the company, and just really impressed with kind of the way that it's not an insurance policy. It's not, in some of the legal things that are implicated with it being an insurance policy. And so after I had kind of an in-depth conversation with him, I started telling my friends and family, look, if you're going to do this, I honestly wouldn't waste my money unless you're going to do CCW Safe. I think that's the only company that's really adding a lot of value and that offers the kind of protection that I would want as someone that's been involved in a lot of criminal litigation, and I kind of see the way these things can play out sometimes. It seems like, y'all's company offers very robust protection to, people that would genuinely deserve it. So I was just genuinely impressed with the product and the service that you guys are providing.
I think it's important because, we probably don't talk about this enough in this particular podcast. Some of the other guys in the company do, but the difference between the different plans that are out there, we'll just call them all plans. Some are insurance, some are not. But as far as a plan is concerned, the fact that you have, the unlimited resources, that you have the experienced team behind you, not me, Rob and those guys, the experienced guys. I'm just a knucklehead on the podcast, but their experience and the backing that they have, and the fact that, they're there with you till the end. Some of the other plans, if you have say you cop a plea because you just can't deal with it anymore, all of a sudden they say, that's great, reimburse us for everything we've put in. And where are you? So there's some interesting, and I think that has to do with the insurance aspect, where if you admit to doing something, insurance can't cover you if you admitted to a crime, something of that nature. I'm not the expert on that, but I think that's where that difference comes in. And that's why CCW Safe is not an insurance company, and they can cover you where you need it.
Yeah, that was honestly the selling point for me, what you just said. Then that was the question that I had was, look, this is great on the surface. I have this plan, I have this coverage, and all the terms are if I'm rightly in self-defense, if I am legitimately, defending myself or my family or whatever. Well, the lawyer in me knows that it rarely works out to where it's that clear cut and that it's that clean of a break, and that if the state has decided to take you to trial and they've invested that much resources and they've got that much skin in the game, and halfway through the trial it's going downhill and they don't want to take a loss, so they're going to pull you into the side of the hallway to break, and they're going to say, will your client plead to aggravated battery? Will your client plead to something for probation? And when you got someone looking at 15 to 20 years in prison for a voluntary manslaughter conviction, they're going to jump at that. They're absolutely going to jump at that. And then so I'm thinking, okay, well, now you have a decision to make. Do I avoid decades in prison, but I'm stuck with a $200,000 legal bill? And that, to me, when Rob explained how you guys are able to circumnavigate those situations, that for me was the turning point where I was like, okay, this is definitely the policy that I would go with.
Well, it's important that people understand what that is. If I took a plea agreement with somebody that provides a different service, that really eliminates going further. I mean, as far as appeals and expungements and those kind of things, you have to have the ability to save yourself, just like you were saying. I'd way rather plead guilty to a lesser charge that includes no prison time. But I also understand the things that come along with that as well. And those are things that I would have to think through. And, it's
a legal fight for another day.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things I want to touch on right now, because again, you guys, you have your law enforcement, you have your criminal courts background, but most of the people, especially the guys who are CCW carriers, they're not criminals. So it's like, well, why would I ever plead to something I didn't do? We don't have that mindset. We try to be outstanding citizens in every manner. And that's what makes this company and the CCW carriers across the nation great. But why would you plead to something? Well, as you said, you might have an aggressive DA like we have here in the People's Republic of Occupied California. The only thing they prosecute are righteous gun owners. Everything else gets a freebie. But you may have somebody who wants to make a name for themselves and stand on your case. And they may throw 50 years, 100, whatever, life imprisonment because you had to defend yourself because the people they let out of jail are causing more problems and you had to get involved. And then if you're looking at that, it's like, why would I gamble a 20-year sentence if I can get a 3-year probation, no jail? And then there's a legal fight later to get it expunged so you can still have your Second Amendment rights and stuff and voting rights. So that's a process that occurs in the system. But if you are somebody who stays outside of the system, like CCW holders, you're not familiar with that. You don't know why. If you copped a plea, you must have been guilty. You take a look in our nation's history. 3 years ago, the guy Trump had to exonerate, right? He was getting such crushed by legal bills. He finally just took a plea on a lesser charge just to get out from underneath it. I'm forgetting his name right now. You probably help me out with that, but it happens. People will plead to things just to stop the bleeding.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the attitude of a client, you see this time and time again. Your first interaction with a client, it's all, I'm not pleading to anything. I'm not pleading to anything. I didn't do anything. They can kiss my butt, blah, blah, blah. That attitude slowly fades with time. The longer the case goes, when the case goes to trial,
Wears you down.
yeah. And you're sitting there and they're about to bring the jury out. Can't tell you how many people have leaned over to me and be like, what are they offering me now? Like all of a sudden when it gets real, when that jury's about to walk in and they realize this isn't theoretical anymore, like a prison sentence is literally potentially hours away now. All of a sudden the principle goes out the window. And you're like, just like you said, Phil, you're thinking about how do I save my own hide?
Well, we even had a deal where once a jury was seated, it's done.
Yeah.
We're having court. And it's really because we've gotten that far into the expenditure. The DA's office has got so much money invested in this thing at this point that it's really frowned on if you're going to try to do it
Yeah.
right then.
You're right.
It's one of those. Some of our competitors have a thing where because it is based on an insurance model, you've lost or you've pled guilty and you have to pay that recoupment before they will ever pick up and go towards any kind of appellate work. Where our structure is built to go all the way through all criminal costs, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about a transcript or a jury consultant. All of the extra little things that people that are uninvolved have no earthly idea about. They have no earthly idea. Yeah, an attorney is really expensive. So is an expert. So is an investigator.
So we're 7 experts.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're going to build the right team, man, that is costly. And one of the things we always press our members for is if you're involved in an incident, any incident, if it's involving your firearm, we need for you to reach out and let us know. There's been so many cases that have just gone away because we've had that early report and we're able to get out in front of it before you make just really an uneducated mistake.
Yeah.
It's not stupid. It's just, if you don't know, you don't know. And we've said over and over again, I don't have any issue going and staying overnight in the county jail.
Not my first choice.
For but for that opportunity for my attorney to come in and be present and be with me, because I'm going to cooperate.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question. Since I can be the client's advocate, I'm not the devil's advocate. I don't care about him. So I'll be the client's advocate here. I have a defense attorney and a criminal attorney, and I have an investigator detective. So if somebody was in an incident, Chad, how many times have you seen somebody overtalk to the police and you have to go as a defense attorney and just unscramble all the eggs?
I can't tell you how many times the conversation has gone to the client. Literally, if you had kept your mouth shut, I could have beat these charges for you. I can't count how many times that's happened. And it's not just even self-defense situations, it's any kind of criminal case. So often the amount of actual tangible evidence is fairly faint. The best evidence they have a lot of times are the things the defendant tells the police, what they tell the investigators. And so, the simple answer to your question is I can't even count how many times over the last 12 years I've either thought that to myself or I've actually said that to the guy, especially when they start getting an attitude with you and talking about how smart they are. I'm like, look, if you were smart, you wouldn't have talked to begin with. So I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. How you beat the cops at a word game.
Yeah.
Rob, so you show up at a scene, right? And you say, hey man, what happened?
Dude, I'm your friend. Right out of the box.
Are you okay? Need some coffee? Dude, what happened? Oh my gosh, what'd this guy do?
Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention? What can I do for you?
Do you need a hug?
And you build that trust really quick. And it's human nature, like Chet was saying, that I'm involved in something and I believe I am steadfast in my belief that I've done nothing wrong. I'm not going to mess up here. So, Gary and I are a little more subtle about it as far as how we direct our members. There's everybody and their dog out there goes, don't say a word, or just tell them I'm not saying anything till my attorney's here. And you can do that. You've really painted an investigator in a corner where you're probably going to spend the night in custody.
Or 2 or 3.
Yeah. I really like going with the very brief statement about, there's nothing wrong with saying this happened here. I was attacked. I had to defend myself, but I need you to know I'm really shaken up right now. I've been through something I never dreamed I would have to go through. And I think it would just be best for everybody involved if I wait until my attorney is present. But I want you to know I'm going to cooperate with you 100%. Easy enough. Walk away. And you may get locked up that night. And you may not. Our most recent one, I can't wait until everything as far as statute of limitations and things go away. But same thing. The guy just told me, I'm not going to talk until my attorney's here. And yes, he was locked up that night, but even the investigator was looking at it with such clarity. I was really impressed with the investigator because as he takes him over and books him in, he's explaining to him how to make his calls. Do this, get somebody to get you bond because you don't belong in here. And that's an investigator. I just think, I think it's really critical to understand that, yes, there are guys out there that are like that, but there's also guys out there, Gary and I have both worked cases, especially Gary, because he was the chief investigator for the DA's office, where you have guys that have really done horrible interviews or interrogations and fed people information and got false confessions. And my whole thing the whole time I was an officer was I never wanted to lock up somebody that I didn't believe was guilty. I would rather let somebody guilty get off than have somebody that's innocent incarcerated. I don't know that I could live with myself for that. So I worked really, really hard. I had a captain early on in my career that told me, if build your case and then get it where you go, yep, I can prove him guilty. And then work it from the other side, from the defense side, and see if you can prove him innocent. Because if you can, he's innocent. You got to let this guy go. Not everybody has the opportunity to do that because case volume gets amazing. I mean, I'm sure your prosecutor's caseload in Tampa was huge. Yeah. I know Oklahoma County is. Those guys are carrying around boxes of files, and sometimes you got attorneys that haven't even looked at something before they walk in on a prelim. Yeah, and they catch up with a cop and go, "Okay, give me a quick rundown. What do we got here?" So that's part of the downside of our judicial system is how overwhelmed it is. But now, Chet, I yelled at you the other day about hopping on with us, and I had seen the clip that you had put out. I'd like to get your 2 cents and kind of introduce our audience a little bit to what that was about, and sure. Because I thought it was so on point and something that needs to be out there. So
yeah, oh yeah, happy to. The clip, which is on my YouTube channel, The Combative Lawyer, it is talking about understanding the context when you do combative training. And when I say combative training, you know, it could be shooting, it could be weapons-based grappling, whatever the case may be, whatever type of training. But I'm gonna just call it combatives or combative training. The one of the most common things you'll learn, and this is totally just by way of example. I mean, you could think of a million examples, but you learn that very close quartered, entangled, vertical or horizontal elbow shield, you know, protecting yourself against an assailant or weapon, a one-handed garment clear, you access your gun, you bring it up to a retention position, and you make, you know, pelvic girdle shots, wherever. That's a very common thing that's taught in entry-level combative schools, you know, wherever you go. And a lot of people will teach variations of that. But the point that I wanted to make is that when you drill these things, it's not done in a scenario-based context. So you don't have your instructor telling you, hey, this is what's happening. This is what has precipitated this response. They're giving you a skill that you're expected to go out and learn and master. We all have heard this term training scar. You know, it's like, oh, I do something here on the range and I created this bad training scar. I kind of saw this as a potential legal training scar, if you will, that let's say you're some guy, you know, you're not really an athlete, you don't train MMA, jiu-jitsu, whatever, you know, you shoot, you take one of these classes, and that's the skill you develop. So in your mind now, it's like they say, when something really bad happens, all you're going to do is what you've trained to do. If you think if somebody puts their hands on you, punches you, pushes you, wherever you feel threatened, you're gonna, you know, adrenaline's gonna dump or whatever. You're gonna go for this vertical elbow shield, draw your gun, and start shooting because that's what you train to do.
If all you have is a hammer.
Yes, sir. Perfect. I mean, that's a perfect example, or a perfect use
Analogy.
of that phrase. You know, for what I'm trying to get across. But understanding that, you know what, you're learning this, you know, default cover, this vertical elbow shield, you know, shooting from retention. You need to understand that, and it should go without saying, but the threshold for deadly force must be present in order for you to do that. Can it be closed fists? Sure. Under certain circumstances, a closed fist attack can meet the threshold of deadly force. It better not just be one initial punch. There better be some other circumstances, because otherwise you are just dealing with a, you know, a simple battery. Someone's trying to hit you or slap you or whatever. Like, you know, that doesn't rise to the level per se of deadly force. So understand, okay, I'm learning a skill. I cannot just do this skill anytime I feel threatened. I need to put that in context. So, you know, if you're looking at that drill, for example, maybe this is a situation where you have two attackers. One guy is trying to punch you. Your back is up against the wall. You've tried to use empty hand skills. You've tried to escape. He's already hit you once or twice. He's not ceasing. You're in fear that next punch is going to knock you unconscious and they're going to rob or kill you. Maybe, once again, every case is fact specific. I'm not trying to prejudge any scenario, but maybe in that situation, it's justified. Converse or juxtapose that with the drunk frat boy at the golf course, and you gets into some sort of verbal altercation and he decides to swing on you. Well, that's not the time to take a default cover and start shooting from retention. You know,
no, that's when you do a double leg and dump him in the pool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's just really, the whole video just kind of boils down to, when you're learning something, don't think, okay, this is just what I'm always going to do. Right. You need to understand that there is an appropriate context for whatever you do.
You know, I mentioned earlier that I'm taking these courses. I haven't taken them yet, but I'm taking them this in January here. My main reason for doing this is gun retention practice. You know, I've done some jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but it's gun retention. Where and when do you practice that? You know,
that's great. Gun retention. So there's the seminars, right? Like the people you go train with, Craig Douglas, Ben Aubin, all these guys, they have these weekend courses, and you'll do force on force with that. And you'll get a good weekend of that. The question is sustainment training, right? Like, and that's been one of the biggest challenges in the combatives community is you go around, you do these seminars, and then you go back to your jujitsu school or your boxing school or whatever, and then you don't think about it again. I have been lucky enough that my coach, who's a black belt, really got interested in this, and him and I have started getting together once or twice a week for about 45 minutes and just practicing this stuff. And so, for example, you buy yourself a blue gun that models after whatever gun you carry. You use your holster. You put on a green gun. You get a partner, and you just scenario drill. You say, "Hey, I want you to pretend that you're mugging me, and we're going to kind of start in an upright, entangled situation. You try to take my gun from me, and I'm going to try to keep you from taking my gun from me." And you just start doing live 2-3 minute sessions or rounds of rolling, sparring, whatever you want to call it, of doing that, and you just start doing that force on force. And I think that's what you have to do.
The first time I'd ever been introduced to anything live like that, we did our handgun retention things when I was going through the academy and just learning basic things. But the things we learned back then were so just utterly ridiculous. Everything, you've got a lethal assault on you, and it was answered with mechanical control every time. And it wasn't until I hit the streets, because the whole time I kept thinking, there's nobody's going to take my gun away from me. And then all of a sudden I start seeing guys losing control of a firearm in altercations on the streets. And these are guys that are DT instructors. These are guys that have done some things. These are SWAT guys. And it was really an eye-opener for me. So that became a big part of my focus. And then I took over our defensive tactics program. I was invited to go to an amazing course. DOJ put it on. It was for it's called Police Corps. It's something that came out through the Clinton administration, but I was brought in to be a trainer for this, and it was an invite only thing. And one of the very
was
first,
it on an island in the Caribbean?
it should have been. No, it was just outside of Chicago. So it was beautiful as well. But one of the very first drills we ever did, and I mean, we've really not got a baseline on anybody or anything, is they drop a gun in the middle of the mat and they go, "Chet, you're up." And then Phil, you're next. Now you start, you're on your knees. Each of you get 2 hands on a pistol. And the object of this is you need to take the gun away, get control. You need 2 rounds on target. But because this is an entangled encounter, once you get a round off, and I can't do it smashed into him because I'm going to knock it out of battery, I got to have a little space. I get a round off. But because we're grappling, you're probably going to have a malfunction. So we get a tap rack and a second round on target. And I just thought, I can do this. And we went for almost 5 minutes wrestling as hard as we could over a loose gun. And from that point forward, it completely changed my thought process. It was just like, worst thing I've ever done ever in my life. I never want to go through that drill again. But it was one of those things that I went back and started really pressing that we have to change our drawn gun retention, our holstered gun defense, all of it. We've got to really address this problem. And I think we've got amazing stuff at my old agency now. I think it's as good as anything that's in the country.
Nice.
It took a lot of development on that. So
The structure of a police officer's holster, level 2, level 3 retentions, level 20 retentions, whatever they have, they're made to be drawn a certain way. So if you reach forward and grab somebody's gun, it won't come to you, right? It's locked in that way. Well, I've seen videos of guys in prison who are practicing locking up, doing a duck under, and now they're on the same side as the officer with their right hand on the gun.
Wow.
It's criminals, murderers practice this crap. And it's extremely important that our officers have to be out there and be prepared for that. Never give up the underhook.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we've talked about how we do our training. There's tons of people that go to the range all the time, very frequently, and they stand there static, and you can't go from the holster because it's against range rules, and you can't shoot more than 1 round per second because it's against range rules, and all of the little safeguards that are in there, and it's for the protection of the range. But even having the ability to come out to our range, and long as you're operating under the primary safety rules of handguns or firearms in general, run it however you want, press it, put your foot on the gas. But just because I can run a gun fast doesn't mean when I'm involved in a position that I have to defend myself or somebody else, I'm not running that gun as fast as I possibly can. That's a test. It's just a stressor to make me better at the skills. It's just like you were talking about, I'm not going to a cover and vertical or horizontal elbow and clearing a garment and going to a gun, and just because I feel threatened. I mean, all of these other things have to be in place. Legal self-defense, by law, the verbiage may change just a little bit, but it's really one of the few things that's very uniform across the country.
It is.
It really, really is. They may change some of the wording, but there's nothing else that's that you can go for driving things or burglaries, property crimes or persons crimes, whatever. Those are remarkably different throughout the country. But self-defense is really a very narrow lane, and you have to stay in your lane. So
yeah.
There was a situation. I was at a store 2 nights ago, and it was at night, and on the front doorstep, this guy decided to hold up and get out of the rain with a machete on their doorstep. And I said to I'm inside, and I said to the owner, I said, just call the cops. Don't go out there. I'm not going to go out there, right? As a private citizen, even though I'm armed, I have no explanation as to why I got involved in this situation, right? So I made the call, and the officers came, and of course the guy has 16 warrants, and he's out on bail again. And it's just the craziness that happens in an insane society. But you have to have the realization as to when can you get involved, when not. There wasn't any imminent threat of severe bodily harm or death. Hey, there's a guy with a machete on the other side of a locked door. Well, as long as that door stays locked, we're good. He comes in here, we'll have another conversation, but don't unlock the door.
That's right.
Don't create a problem. Don't leave a trail of breadcrumbs to the eventual deal. So, I just thought and I looked at the owner of the store. I said, "You're going to let him stay there? You have women in and out of this store. You're going to let the guy in?" He goes, "Well, I don't want to cause problems." Like, that guy's causing problems. The cops are here. Hopefully they'll bring a dog or a taser,
That's right.
Send him down the road. Anyway, he did get tased.
I think one of the things that have contributed to that problem that you mentioned of, people wanting to go and get involved is this idea of citizens arrest in this country. And that's something, look, everyone has their own opinion. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of citizens arrest. I think it creates more problems than it solves. Also, I mean, you want to talk about something that is fairly state specific. That's a very state specific statute. If you have a citizens arrest statute at all, there are very specific things that you can arrest for, and the manner in which you do it. I would never ever want to have to rely on my utilization of a citizens arrest statute to justify some sort of action that I took. So I'm just, and so that's kind of a soapbox of mine. Look, I don't make the law. If you know, if the legislator sees fit to have a citizens arrest statute, and if someone wants to agree with that and support that, that's fine. I'm not here to tell them their opinion is wrong. But my opinion is, I just see this creating more problems than it solves. And I think, just like you said, in that situation, a lesser person would have said, "I'm going to go. I've got a gun. I'm going to go out there and make a citizen's arrest for brandishing a machete or whatever." But you know, your course of action, your course of action was the wiser, more level-headed approach, and it avoids, you know, like you said, having to justify, well, why the heck are you getting involved in this?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of gray hair. You have to earn them. You have to live through a lot of stupid situations to get this many gray hairs.
So what, I know you do your combative stuff, and you have recently moved, is that correct? Have you relocated yet?
Yes, so we relocated to Dallas. My wife is doing a medical fellowship there, but we're going to be moving into Greenville, South Carolina next year, and so I will be I'll be joining a private defense firm there and running the Greenville office. We'll be covering Spartanburg and Greenville County.
Nice. Have you had some use of force cases or anything like that yet?
On the you mean as a prosecutor or a defense attorney?
Either way.
Both, yeah, for sure. Lot of them as a defense attorney. I mean, you do a lot as a prosecutor also. But yeah, I mean, I've tried several aggravated battery, utilized a lot of defensive consent, which is an I shouldn't say unknown, but it's a defense that doesn't come up very often. But it's essentially where you can argue, look, the victim consented to this contact based on their conduct. And I remember I had one jury trial where it was at a gas station. My client held this girl by her hair, pulled her, or grabbed her by her head, slammed her head against the car, and they were just beating each other, you know, like white trash girl fight, you know, like Cops episode, you know, something you would expect to see at a Waffle House or something, you know, something crazy. And this was all on video. I mean, so there was no getting around it. But my whole argument was, look, the victim followed my client because they had beef, followed her into the parking lot, got out of the car, got up, walked to her car to confront her. My argument was, she wanted to fight, and that's what she wanted to happen. She didn't like how the fight went. She didn't like the outcome of the fight, but she consented to the touching. She consented to, and you know, it came back not guilty. Now they could have come back not guilty for another reason, but that was really the only viable defense that I put up. So yeah, but that's just kind of a funny story of that. But yeah, I mean, those countless stories like that. So,
and when you put that on Combative's Lawyer on YouTube, your hit rate went up, right?
Right.
That fight.
I wish I could have live streamed it. That would have been great.
Oh.
That's one of those things that you don't really understand until you're looking at it from the outside in. You know, Phil and I have discussed this many times about humans are very emotional creatures. We respond emotionally. I was an investigator. My initial feel is feelings. It's an emotion. Oh my gosh. As an investigator, though, I really have to take a step back, be completely subjective, be open to everything that's going on. I can't just go, well, I know Phil and he says this. It's got to be something with substance. So if I'm consulted on a case, and it was one of the things that the first time I handled a self-defense case for the defense, it was in federal court. And I don't know if you know what the win ratio is in federal court, Chet, but
very low, very, very low.
Yeah. They just almost don't go to court if there's any chance of losing. So we won the case, and very rightly so. But the numbers of requests I had to look at cases after that just went through the roof. Law enforcement cases. And they're trying to hem me up on this, or they're trying to, and I would go ahead and agree to look at the stuff, and all of a sudden it was like, oh dear God, you're wrong. You can't do this. And it was so overwhelming that I had to really elevate a price for just the consultation, just to weed that out.
Yeah.
And we'll typically waive a consult fee if it's really a case. But the guys that were out there begging and pleading for help on something where they just screwed up, yeah, I can't help you, dude. It took way too much effort, way too many bumps and bruises, and to get to the point to be certified in a federal court as an expert.
That's right.
I'm never going to screw that up. Never. Yeah. So, I think it's very important for a lot of people that think, well, if you do this, I'll do this. I need you to understand that when I'm consulted, the very first thing I want to look at is, was there an out? At any point in time, was there a way out of this? Mm-hmm. And why didn't we take that? Because, our COO, Stan, has, he always says this. Phil and I have said this many times, handle this situation like you would if you didn't have a firearm.
That's good.
How many people insert themselves?
Of course, Stan can bench press Volkswagen, so.
and he's got the skill set that goes with all the rest too. So he's a little bit on the dangerous side, but it's why Phil and I keep him so close in our friendship.
Dear friend at all times.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, I mean, always be mindful. Phil's talking about the guy with the machete at the convenience store.
Well, I didn't bring that. It ended up, I didn't see the thing. I was told about it. It ended up being a wooden stake. Oh. Right. So somebody says machete, he calls in machete. Here's a guy with a wooden stake. He still was a multiple felon, but and they knew who he was. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, we took Vampire Slayer off the streets.
Everyday drama in California. We have free range felons. They're out there doing their thing.
Free range. But you could imagine if you went and inserted yourself into that situation, guns drawn.
Nightmare.
Then from his standpoint, he might be thinking this guy's trying to rob me because he doesn't have a machete. He has a wooden stick. He doesn't, and so then he escalates with maybe a knife or a gun that he does have. And now all of a sudden you're in the shootout and come to find out you just drew your gun on a guy with a wooden stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are the cause of this.
Yeah. It's I think, I've been blessed to be able to do this. We've done this a long time now, Rob, but been blessed to have these conversations more and more and more. So it's second nature. You just look at a situation like, nope, this is a no-go. There's danger down that road. Nothing good's going to come out of that. 911's right here. The door's locked. Again, like I said, he's a multiple felon, but he's obviously unstable. Why is he unstable? Well, I said this to the door owner. I said, this guy's mentally unstable. He goes, how do you know? I said, he's sleeping on your doorstep in the rain. there are shelters. If he was mentally stable, he wouldn't be in the rain doing these stupid things, just.
Yep.
Well, and it's another thing that when you're weighing those things, the sheer volume of mental illness in that homeless community is through the roof.
It's strangely enough, it happens to directly coincide with the level of drug use in that. Don't tell me, oh, these poor guys just got a little bit psycho. They've rotted their brains with drugs, period.
It happens. It does.
Yep.
Chet, tell everybody how to see your stuff. I'm subscribed, and I think you're putting good information out there for folks. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's The Combative Lawyer on YouTube. I haven't really crossed over into any other platforms. I'm just kind of trying to learn how to use YouTube. It's very rough right now. Like it's a very new channel. I'm trying to get my bearings, and so I'm focusing on content, but I am also trying to learn how to make better audio and light and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely appreciate people bearing with me in the early stages as I'm kind of trying to clean things up or whatever. But my goal is going to be to try to make maybe 3 to 4 videos a week. I try to always keep it less than 7 or 8 minutes long. And yeah, so that's about it.
I thought all lawyers were combative.
The guy that I was talking to that kind of helped me came up with the name. He said, this is kind of cool because it sort of has a double entendre. I mean, you're the combatives lawyer, but you're also a combative lawyer. So I was like, you know what? There's some people that would tend to agree with you.
Phil, what do you got coming up, buddy?
Well, as I said, next.
You kind of freeze up there.
Yeah, he froze. Following suit.
Oh yeah.
Well, I have got SHOT Show coming up here in another week and a half.
Oh, nice.
And we've got what else? We've got trip down to Florida. We go to the annual business meeting for NYPD's Retired Sergeants Association. They have a huge membership group that are CCW safe guys.
Nice.
So we try to go down there and take care of them as well. So we've got, goodness, JJ Racaza is one of our brand ambassadors. So I will be with JJ at SHOT Show. Also looking for other folks, and it'll be my first trip out there, so I've never been. I'm pretty excited about that.
Very cool.
And then I've heard from several people that once you've been once, you've seen it. So but we stay pretty active in the circuit, and we also stay pretty active. We're blessed enough that our company still lets us train and do things and go out, and so I'm trying to set my schedule for this year as well.
That's awesome.
So
are you going to TechCon by any chance?
I'll present this year. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Am.
That's if it's the conference that I'm thinking of, it's only about 12-15 minutes from my house. I don't think I'll be able to go, but if you got some free time, hit me up. Maybe we could grab some coffee or something. If you have time.
Yeah, sure will.
Yeah.
Sure will. Well, Chet, thank you so much for hopping on with us. Stay in touch. I will reach out to you in March for sure.
Great. No, thanks so much, and I really appreciate being on the show. Just an absolute honor. Like I said, I really like what you guys are doing.
Thank you, sir. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in today. As always, if you have any gripes, complaints, suggestions, attaboys, anything, you can reach me directly at rob@ccwsafe.com. And we will look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks.